So, welcome everyone. Really nice to have you here on our info session. We have a lot of our team here from the Integrative Psychology Institute. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I want to invite us just to come into a space of presence, meaning that if there's anything around you that feels distracting or not comfortable, do you want to get a little warmer, a little more comfortable, maybe turn your phone on Do Not Disturb. It will support us in receiving a lot of the information that we have to share today. And let's just begin with a few deep breaths. You're welcome to close the eyes, or maybe even just to lift the eyes off the screen and onto something either neutral or pleasant. And let's just take 3 deep breaths, sweeping the arms wide and high. And then just imagine like a coffee press. We are pressing down through the center line of the body from crown through head, through heart, down to earth. We'll just do that twice more just to welcome ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our hearts into the space. And seeing if this last final breath can be received in an even softer belly, making a little bit more space to receive the inhale. Maybe releasing on the exhale something that's holding that doesn't need to hold right now. And then just releasing the palms, softening the shoulders, lengthening the spine. And opening the eyes back to the screen and welcoming yourselves and everyone else here. I'm going to pass over to our co-founder Adam, who is going to take you through some of the ins and outs of the master's training, and then we'll pass it on to some of the rest of our team.
Thank you, Molly. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam. I'm one of the co-founders of the Integrative Psych Institute. We are super lucky here today to be joined by many members of our team, including our Dean of Integrative Psychology, Nikki, our Educational Director, Jeremy, our Compliance Director, Mason, Brittany, our Professional Certification Director, and Molly, our co-founder. So the whole fam's here today. We're very excited to meet all of you. I would love to, before we start sharing, I would love to open it up to the space and love to hear from a couple of you. Today, I'd love to invite a few people to share what brought you to the call today and what has been your experience so far in looking for a master's degree or trying to navigate the mental health profession.
Thanks so much. I am incredibly interested in your program because of its holistic appeal. I don't think that we can walk into healing without an embodied process. Our body controls and honestly is so interactive with the way our minds hold trauma and joy, right? So we express all of these things with our bodies. And I don't think if you sever that connection, I think if you sever it, then it doesn't allow for total healing. And I think the second part of your question was can you repeat that for me?
Yeah, I was curious, what's been your experience so far of looking for a master's degree and trying to navigate into the profession that you want to be in?
So I think my experience has been slightly complicated, but because I've been looking for online programming. I'm more of a non-traditional student. I've worked in the arts with dancers for about 15 years and have just gone back and finishing my degree this month. And I've run a variety of things, but I think that this process, when I found you, I thought it was really interesting that you combine the kind of the clinical practicum as part of a process where we can actually hands-on work with people in a monitored environment. And so that we have support in learning how to do that, but also start building our skills and confidence at the same time.
Yeah.
before we go into a licensure. I also loved that we could do a master's before a licensure because then we actually have our degrees if we want to go into just a coaching process instead.
Yeah, that's right. Really, really beautifully said on both fronts, Shannon. Thank you so much for sharing.
Um, well, I think I'm also excited because I have looked at doing a master's and I always am like, oh, I could do it. And then I just never do it because I think I got into an interviewing process and it just wasn't what I was looking for.
Hmm.
It was like really mainstream and it was funny because like I never really got help from mainstream therapy. And so I was like, yeah, I don't want to do the same thing that didn't really help me. I feel like I really healed from a mind, body, soul approach. So when I found that you guys do that, that really intrigued me because I haven't seen that before. And also that it's so much more affordable than I feel like most places are. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. I love the passion for the healing and acknowledging the full human. It's very important, and we feel so passionate about this work because there's a number of challenges that are presented for practitioners that have the sort of philosophy that we have, and it sounds like you both have. Um, and we're going to be talking a lot about that today, a lot about many of those challenges and how this program addresses those challenges. I'll be talking over slides, which I'll start in a moment here. We'll pause every 10 minutes or so to open it up for questions. I know that there are a ton of questions that are involved not only today, but just in your entire enrollment process in general. And as you start to move into the degree, we are here to help you navigate all of those questions. And we will do our very, very best to get you all the answers that you want. Today, I hope that we can get through the major questions and you can get a good sense of the outline of this program and the career paths that we have presented for you. And then if you do decide that this is a fit for you, we are starting to get into the crunch time for our enrollment. It's a really good time to go and apply and to get into the application process. We've done a lot of work to simplify our application process. Sedona mentioned that you were in the application process for another school, and that alone can be really kind of pedantic in my experience. We hear it from students often who they've been applying to master's programs for like years, or they have to take a 2 week vacation just to fill out the application. We don't like to put our students through that. We like to just use common sense measures and rely on some objective information and an interview. So with that, I'm going to start sharing. And our program is designed to train the next generation of integrative therapists. We offer both a Master of Arts in Integrative Psychology, which is an unlicensed program, which will then the hours to which go towards an additional program, our MS in clinical counseling, if you do want to go eventually and get a therapy license, if you decide that that is a fit for you. So just a little bit about who we are. We strive to be the most forward-thinking mental health institution on earth. I I acknowledge that when I say that might sound like hyperbole or that might sound like marketing language. And I think the more that you get to know us, you'll learn how seriously we take that. As I mentioned, navigating the integrative space, not only in mental health, but in general, if you're going to be a naturopathic doctor or a Chinese medicine doctor, it's a challenging space. And we try to help our students. We try to provide compliant solutions for our students within that so that they have actual backing behind them in order to be in integrative practice. We're headquartered in Los Angeles, actually, sort of co-headquartered in Los Angeles and Phoenix, Arizona. We have a staff of over 20 therapists, doctors, and healers. A lot of us come from a yoga background. Other than that, we have like an extremely intellectually diverse staff that comes from backgrounds. My background personally is more in on business building and supporting healers and building their business. Our dean, we're lucky enough to have us here today, who I'm going to send it to here in a moment, is Nikki Wickstrom. And uh, with that, I will send it over to Nikki.
Hi, you guys. I'm Nikki Wickstrom. I'm the Dean of Academic Programs here. So, really, my purview is making sure that we design whole person centered curricula for the program and that it's delivered in a way that honors an embodied perspective and an applied perspective, but that we also still bring in theory and conceptual framework so that you guys can build those other two on a solid foundation. So I want to talk to you a little bit about why integrative psychology. So you can see this person sitting here and just sort of arranged and within the orbit of all of these different modalities. And in our foundational course, which is Foundations of Integrative Psychology, I use a metaphor that talks about the therapist as a translator, as someone who's learning to speak the different languages of multiple modalities, like somatic modality, narrative and relational, cognitive, which falls under a really big umbrella, but is really channeled within the scope of this degree. And then finally, existential and transpersonal. So when we designed this curriculum, we took it all into account. What do we see as missing when we only focus on one modality? Generally speaking, traditional programs have a one path approach. It's only cognitive. There's different ways at approaching those cognitive skills, but it's still only cognitive. Even now, many therapists are learning, therapists who have been practicing for years, that they're finding that something's still missing. And in the same way, if it's only just somatic, there comes to a point where how are we going to move into more behavioral change and modification so that these people can move towards a well-lived life? So it's really important for us that we're addressing the whole person. I think Shannon brought that up. And that comes through the content that we teach, but also in the delivery. Like I said, making sure we cover all of those three areas. And we can go to the next slide, Adam. This is one of our core philosophies here. It's the idea of a well-balanced soul, and you can see that it's separated. We know that it becomes one whole ultimately, right? But into the intellect, so those are our cognitive structures, the emotion and identity, and also the soma and the body. And then I like for us to all remember that surrounding that is the transpersonal dimension, that which lies outside of us that we can't actually see. And that is actually really important in therapeutic spaces because there's this field that the client contributes to and that the therapist contributes to, but it kind of becomes its own third entity in the room. So we always want to be mindful that we're checking in with our clients and with ourselves along these lines, that we're taking stock of it. We want to make sure that we're not overactive in the mind and not tending to the body or the emotion. And that goes for all of those areas. So for us, healing, I think for all of us here, we know this on some level. So we just brought it into a framework, but we understand that healing happens when all of these areas are in relative balance. And we also know that we don't walk around balanced all the time, right? So the idea isn't static, it's to be able to get back to balance when you realize you've lost that balance. So just to round this out, I want to come back to our pedagogy because it's really, really important that we offer a solid foundation of theoretical and conceptual frameworks. We make sure that that information is embodied in its delivery. And then most importantly, we give you your why. Why are you even learning what you're learning and how does it apply to your life, either just relationally or in further therapeutic practice?
Thank you, Nikki. Before we go on, I want to just quickly survey the group. Raise your hand if you've had a lot of challenge navigating the professional pathways in mental health. Yeah, most people. This is it's an enormous challenge, and one thing that you will learn, if you are more conventionally minded and you're clear that you want to do talk therapy and that you want to go through long supervision and seek 6 clients a day for your whole career, there's clear pathways set out for you. If you come from more of a healing disposition, if you believe in more alternative modalities, the landscape is very, very unclear and it's very, very hard to navigate, and there's not really a map to navigate that. Interestingly, what what you will find in doing so is that the system is set up in such a way so that for somatic practitioners, there's actually not really a clear pathway. It is suggested to somatic practitioners just by default that you have to go get a license. But the interesting thing about license is that it forces you to work with something called the DSM-5, which is a diagnosis manual. It doesn't really let you do somatic and integrative practice in the nature of holding a license. If you go then the coaching route, that is also territory that is gray and tricky to navigate, and there's a lot of uncertainty. So our degree is actually the degree that allows students to get a master's degree in integrative and somatic psychology, while also giving you the option to pursue licensure later on down the road. Now, I need to qualify that statement a little bit just for compliance purposes, in that there are a few states that our licensure portion of this does not currently meet. There is a particular accreditation that we will need to get later on down the road that is not in our roadmap. The information for that is on our website. There are 4 states where you are not able to get that license. This also ties in with our institutional accreditation path, which we're in the process of following that, and which doesn't affect this program that we're talking about here today, the MA in integrative psychology, in any material terms, but it does impact the MS. We'll get a little bit more into that nuance a bit later, and we can talk more about that in your interview. So one interesting stat that we came across during the formation of this degree was that less than 1% of students searching for a master's degree in psychology end up enrolling in one. That is by far the worst of any profession. So there's about 2 million people every year that search for a master's degree in psychology, and about 24,000 people a year that end up enrolling in one. Why is that? Because there is this labyrinth that students are forced to enter. There's these elongated supervision processes. And collectively, over the last 10 or 20 years, mental health as philosophically is going in the other direction, as we recognize that trauma is really at the root cause, and everyone's sort of in a sort of retraining and rethinking the basic tenets of how to provide helpful therapeutic space for people. Now, of that 1%, only 27% of those students who enroll in a clinical counseling program end up completing licensure. Again, for many of the issues that I just mentioned, but suffice to say that it is a very challenging road on the traditional path in this field. I want to also address a question that is sort of an obvious question, and this is something that you want to contemplate. Raise your hand if you are currently doing coaching work. And I apologize, I cannot see everyone, but I imagine there's usually many people coming on this program are already doing some coaching work. And one of the questions you were likely asking yourself is, well, is it really worth it to level up to become an integrative therapist or to get a license? And this data would suggest that yes, absolutely, it is worth it. What I have up here is the number of people per month that search on Google for a somatic coach, which is about 1,300 people per month in the entire US that search for a somatic coach, versus the number of people that search for a somatic therapist. As you see, it's about 56 times more people search for a therapist. So it's very valuable to go get a master's degree and to enter a pathway to become an integrative therapist. The premise of this degree is that we're helping our students, who, by the way, as I mentioned, a lot of them are coaches, but not all, get a degree while building a client business. So starting in week 10, you'll begin business coursework with myself and our business mentors that are nurturing you to help you form a business while you're on the degree. That comes with theoretical content. It comes with one-on-one mentoring. And it comes, we take this really seriously. We've been doing this for a number of years, and one of the things that we've learned about this is that there's so much. Actually, setting up a private practice it's remarkably simple, comparatively speaking, to other businesses, but there's so much nuance to it. One of the ways that we've solved that is we actually give our students a pre-formulated web template that you get to go in and put your information in, and we can proactively build your brand and build your platform together as just one example of the many things that we do as a part of the business program. It is highly practical. It is highly focused. We take it really seriously that students get value out of the degree and feel by the end of the degree, and in no particular rush, that they feel prepared to be a professional by the end of the degree. I had just mentioned this. One of the features of this degree is that you will be matched with a one-on-one mentor as a part of the program. We have 3 different mentor options, each one of them that embody sort of a different form of professional practice. We have one who's an unlicensed integrative therapist who's also a massage therapist. We have another one, Alana, from our team, who is an LMFT. So depending on which track you want to go, you get to align with a mentor who is closer to what you want to do, and you get 6 sessions with them throughout the year. So I'm going to put up the basic high level details of the degree here, and after that I'll pause and take questions before we move on. So the degree costs, it's $25,000. It's an 18-month program, 54 total credit hours. It comes out to about 12 to 18 hours of coursework a week. That can vary week to week. Of that, about a third of that is guided content, meaning like you're actually in class. The way I'm sure many of you are wondering about schedules, if you're enrolling in the session that begins February 1st, we structure it so that all the live Zoom coursework happens on Thursday. It's Thursday, right, Nikki? I'm pretty sure it's Thursday for the February cohort.
Correct.
Yeah. Every Thursday from 9 a.m. to approximately noon. So you can just block that off in your calendar. For the most, there are some courses that go outside of that as well, less regularly. There's also the facilitation groups, which if Nikki, if we get questions about that, we can answer. But for the most part, if you can block off that portion in your schedule, you can complete the degree. We'll get into a little bit later how the option, if you want to go for licensure, how that works. We can talk about that next. I saw Louise, I saw your hand first.
Oh, my question was because I work full time as a coach at the VA, so I do 10-hour shifts Monday through Thursday. Are there evening classes or somewhere where I can do the stuff on the weekend?
Those class times are set, unfortunately. We do record all sessions. The policy in each quarter is usually that you can, I believe, miss 1 or 2 live sessions and 3 live sessions. If you weren't able to block off that time in your calendar, frankly, I think it would be impossible to complete the degree. So you would need to look into adjusting the schedule to be able to do that. Yeah.
Does that Thursday stay consistent through the whole program?
That's our intention. And our intention is yes. I'm maybe using a little bit delicate language because sometimes there are just extenuating circumstances. But yeah, Nikki, would you say that's accurate, that through the whole degree that is the?
I would say expect for the Thursday block to be true throughout the degree. And then there are a couple more additional areas of consideration. There will be a skills lab for our clinical skills. Those are usually in the afternoons Pacific time. And there's a once per month Saturday course that runs about 12 out of the 18 months. So that's also another consideration. But the biggest time consideration would be making those lectures because we have optional skills lab times. So that block of time is really the primary concern.
If so, for the other times besides the Thursday, would we have enough of a heads up? I mean, I teach, and
Yes.
so I need a way ahead of time flag if I'm going to change my schedule.
Absolutely. You would have the skills labs times well before you enrolled, and those would stay the same. In addition, you would have those Saturday times as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Rachel, I'm asking you to unmute as well.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. So would these Thursdays be for the entire 18 months? Is part one. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yes, the Thursdays are for you can set that Thursday apart from like the holiday weeks. You can set that in your schedule for the entire degree.
Okay. And then second question, is this the same schedule for the MS degree, or would that be a completely different
Yeah,
schedule?
that schedule is different. We'll get into talking about the MS next. The MS, we've designed it to be like much more asynchronous. We're actually trying to get it to the point where it is actually entirely asynchronous.
Hi, yeah, I do have a question about the mentoring component and what is the support for alumni? If, like, let's say you hypothetically completed the program, and what happens beyond that? And the second question just follows up about the MS being asynchronous. So, what does that look like? Because I don't live in any of the states that the program's available in. So is this something that I guess I'm trying to understand how that could become a possibility and how to work around that if it's not completely asynchronous right now.
Yeah, Carissa, can you remind me of your first question?
About mentoring one-on-one. And the mentoring, does that exist only within the duration of the program, or does it also continues for alumni?
It is right now, it's only during the duration of the program. In
Okay.
general, after you complete your degree, there's a number of different professional organizations that you can register with, that there's like additional supervision or mentoring that you can get with outside organizations that we either partner with or can direct you to. But in terms of us, also we are pretty active in creating like continuing education coursework ourselves. So we have professional certifications as well that you can take at any time, even after the degree. In terms of any like just sort of as a baseline standard in psychology degrees, generally a lot of your the professional aspects of what you would do would be in organizations outside of us as your original degree provider.
Okay.
And then in terms of the details of the MS, I'm not sure I totally understand your question. And Carissa, we can get into a lot of rabbit holes in this conversation. What I would do, can somebody send Carissa from our team, send Carissa a link to call with Mason, and Mason can talk to you individually on this call. Like we don't like to get into the nitty-gritties of that stuff too much.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
Thanks, Carissa. Janice.
Yes. Hello, everyone. So my question is, if I want to pursue this path of becoming a somatic therapist and building my own business, but I have a scholarship opportunity to get a counseling to get a counseling degree with another institution, and so my thought is like, honestly, like I would prefer to go to the Integrative Psych Institute and just go full on with this. But a part of me also wants to pursue licensure,
Yeah.
and it's a K-CREP institution. And so my thought is like, because I have this scholarship opportunity with this other institution, I might as well just get the licensure through them because they follow the traditional K-CREP model. But I would love to still pursue this program just for the formation, at least for the MA in psychology, integrative psych. And so my question is that possible? Do you have students that are currently licensed or have been licensed at other institutions and are just doing it for the knowledge? Because I feel like it's really the future of mental health, and I really do feel like very passionate about somatic healing.
Yeah, really good question. My honest answer is so we have not had students we've had students that have come back who have master's degrees in other subjects or adjacent subjects. My sense, and I think Nikki will probably corroborate this, is that after doing one master's degree, especially the clinical counseling degrees, which are very dense, I think you're probably going to want to take some time to like get into supervision and like start on your career path. And so I don't know that just on sort of a cursory glance that I would recommend that just as a career route. I think it sounds like Janice, you would also fall under the instance of like it would be good to get some. It sounds like you know a lot about this, and you've already if you know what cake rep is, like you're already pretty down the rabbit hole. My recommendation for you, actually, my sense is that you should go through our application process. During the actual interview, we will give you a formal assessment. It's $75 to go through our application process, and it's like relatively simple. We will give you a formal assessment as to whether or not we can meet your career goals. What state are you in, Janice?
I'm in the state of Texas.
Texas, okay. Just like on a cursory glance, yes, there is a path where you could get a license, a LPC license through us. There's a couple considerations there that you just want to be aware of going into that. But I recommend that you apply, and we can go into those details. But just on as long that is not one of the four states that we know we can't prepare students in licensure. So I think you're a good candidate.
Okay. And if I do the application this time around, but I don't want to start until, let's say, September, is that possible to apply, but to enlist myself for the September timeframe?
There's a few we do make you there's a degree deposit that needs to be made to grab your spot, but we can make exceptions on that sometimes depending on your circumstances.
Okay. And then since you guys don't take FAFSA or financial aid, do you allow for extended payment plans, such as like 10 months payment plans or very customizable plans?
We do. So our most extended payment plan is you're paying, there's a $5,000 upfront deposit, and then it's $1,350 a month over the 18 months.
Over the 18 months. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, those are all my questions for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll just go to one last question before we go on, and that is Alicia.
Hi, you may be about to answer this. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. But I was just wondering if you could go into a little bit how the supervision works if you're going to do the MS licensure path.
Yeah, really good question. So I think it's important so the terminology around this is kind of specific. Supervision, and I'll go to a slide that I have here in a second that puts this on the screen. Supervision is actually what happens post degree. So you finish your degree, and then if you're going the LPC route, you register as an associate clinician, so the supervision is actually completely separate from your degree. During the degree, we do what's called practicum, which is you're sort of getting your feet wet in working with clients. It's another thing where there's kind of a lot of nuance to like how it works at each level. But does that answer your basic question? And the other part about that is that every state has different laws about supervision. Generally, if you're going to go the licensure path, there's about 3,000 hours of supervision post degree that you're required to do. I hope that answers your question, and I think that's a good segue into.
Sorry, I accidentally got muted again.
Oh,
Yes, it does answer my question. So.
Great. Okay, so next we're going to start to talk about if you do decide that you want to go get a license. I'm going to talk to you about how that works in our curriculum, because we actually have a really unique curriculum design that it took our compliance team a lot of time to work out how to make this work for our students. So just to kind of lay the groundwork here, in order to go on the LPC license path, there's like many steps. And, transparently, we're hoping as an institution that they eventually change this, because we find it very hard for students to complete all of this. But so first it requires a bachelor's degree and then it requires a master's degree. There's some particular requirements that they put on the master's degree. It can't just be any degree. There are particular degrees that have to meet the regulatory standards to prepare you for license. That is why in our system, the two degrees go together. So our compliant, both of them are legally conferred master's degrees. The one that is the accredited degree that moves you towards licensure is the MS in clinical counseling, and they actually work together. This is the unique feature. Now, the way that this works in most schools is you have to either go one path or the other. You either have to go down their general psychology route and then start over if you eventually want to get a license. How we generally guide our students is finish our first degree, which, this is where we kind of put all of our philosophy into this degree. This is the one where we're really, training you with what we feel that you need to be a great integrative therapist. Then after that, practice for a year, 2, maybe 3 years. And then if you decide that you want to go to the licensure path so that you can bill insurance and have a little bit more stability in your practice, that's really when you'd want to go and consider getting the MS in clinical counseling. We design the MS in clinical counseling to be more asynchronous. It is more heady. It's more of the compliance. You're learning how to diagnose and treat mental health conditions, and so that's more of where that goes in our curriculum. We try to make it just super affordable, really just as a service to our students. And these together still end up being significantly less than the other degree programs that most students are considering when going into into integrative psychology. So with that, I know that there's many students here who are probably watching this and saying, wow, this sounds really interesting. I have a lot to consider. And I might want to start with a shorter training just to get my feet wet. And that's where our professional certifications come in. If you have specific questions, I encourage you to reach out to our staff. There's a number of ways that you can get your specific questions answered. Honestly, I imagine if you're here and you're thinking that you want to go for the degree in February, now is really the time to apply. We are getting to our crunch time. There's quite a number of steps in the enrollment process. And it's, there's a $75 fee for the application. And we can answer most of your questions through that process. And we will give you a formal assessment as to whether we feel that we can meet the route that you are aiming to go. So I'm going to send it over to Jeremy from our team to talk about the professional certifications.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I'm the educational director here, and we're going to switch a bit and talk about our other certifications. So let's go ahead and hop into the next slide. So one of the cool features about our professional certifications, of course, is that we have built it so that they will apply towards the master's degree. They each count for 6 credits. So it can be, it's a great, step for anybody who wants to get the certificate, deepen their education and their professional career. But it's wonderful also for anyone who might be thinking about the MA, but for any reason, maybe time commitment, financial, et cetera. Right now is not the time to jump into the whole program, but you want to start to learn or at least take some steps over the next 6 months or so to move in that direction. If you were to enroll in any of the professional trainings, they will give you a 6 credit transfer each to the master's program. So what that means is you'll have a slightly adjusted tuition and a few less credits that you will be responsible for when you enter that program. So that's just a really sweet feature so that you can continue on the path in a sort of a pace that makes sense for you. So the way that our professional certifications are set up, we have 2 core ones right now. There's a couple more in development that'll be released soon. They both are structured the same way. There's 2 modules. The first module is focused on principles and embodiment. This is where you're learning the information, theory, and you're also starting to develop, especially with something like the psychosomatic practitioner, your own embodied practice and how you relate to this in your body and your experience. In module 2, we focus on facilitation. This is where sort of the rubber meets the road and you're breaking into more practice groups with your cohort, getting to learn these skills, whether it be parts therapy, psychosomatic, etc. So those are the 2 phases of the programs. Let's go to the next slide. So the way that they're each set up currently, this is for both psychosomatic and parts, and then we'll get into sort of those specifically. The first module, like I said, principles, it's 3 months, mostly self-paced content. There's about 5 live sessions. The live sessions are the touch points. You'll get to come on with your teacher, who will be digging into different topics that sort of sync up with the asynchronous content that you're doing. About 60 hours of total coursework. We built the first part of this program to have a little more flexibility. So within the 3 months, we'll give you guidelines of where we think or suggest you should be as you move through the content. Okay, here's your month 1 goal, 2, 3, etc. But if you're moving quicker or slower or something comes up and you're a few weeks behind, in this first module, it's fine. We're flexible. The real important thing is that you are finished with the 3 months at the end of the 3 months. So you can work ahead or you can play a little catch up. The reason that's important is so that everyone in the cohort is on the same page when you move into the second module, which will be the facilitation. So of course, we want everyone who's practicing facilitating to have gone through, learning the same things and sort of in the same place more or less. So then when you move into module 2, focus is on facilitation. There are 6 live sessions currently. Weekly facilitation groups. There's a couple options depending on the cohort and when we enroll, which we can, of course, share that information with you too, but you'll have drop-ins. The way those sessions are structured, there's a mentor who's there. They'll give sort of the prompt or the thing that you're working with that day. You'll break into breakout rooms with your cohort, and then the mentor will sort of pop in and out of those, giving feedback along the way to you as you practice. So that's the sort of high level of how they're structured. Let's go to the next slide. We'll dig into, I think, here's more about it. So yeah, the weekly facilitation groups. You get about 18 hours of practice facilitation during the training with clear instructions and how to run a session. So this is guiding you to give you the framework of what does it mean to run a psychosomatic session? What does it mean to run parts therapy session? So that's the time you get to practice. Go to the next one. The price for the training, they are built pretty different tiers essentially. So the psychosomatic is just under 4K, $39.50. There's payment plans available. The parts therapy is next, just under that, $29.50. And then we have these other wonderful courses. The narrative therapy short course. This is a really sweet course about reauthoring your life. And the build a therapy practice, which is a sort of a business intensive. So maybe you're already established in your career and you would like some support on actually building your therapy practice. That's another course that you can enroll in as well.
Yeah, Jeremy, I'll say just a few words about that. The way we do this is that we'll take particular courses from our MA degree and we'll pull them out as professional trainings. So many students find the business training so beneficial because it's very hard to find the right type of professional guidance specifically for building a private coaching business or a therapy business. Nikki and I were laughing last week because she shared with me that I think, Nikki, you said first you signed up for one of those really masculine, data-driven marketing business trainings, and then you signed up for another one that was more feminine, and they were like burning incense in it and calling in spirits. And it's hard for our students to find really grounded guidance. And I think we take pride in the business curriculum and being very focused and run in a very supportive, like an energetically supportive way, but also kind of a very firm container to answer, I think, a lot of the most pressing questions about what type of practitioner should I be? How do I align with what people are actually searching for? And then how do I find them in the actual moments that they're searching for a practitioner? The cool thing about that one as well is that you get 3 full credit hours for taking you get 3 full credit hours for taking all these except the narrative therapy short course. That one is not a credit course. But you actually save about $3,000 towards the degree by taking any of these. And so you actually end up saving a little bit of money on the degree. So as I mentioned, that actually should say January 1st, excuse me. So the deadline to apply is for this, the cohort that starts in February is January 1st. We're really like in our crunch time for the enrollment period now. There's quite a bit that goes into the enrollment. There's a simple form that takes about just 5 or 10 minutes, and then you will do an interview with Jeremy or myself or Molly. And yeah, with that, I think we're done on our end. We'd love to spend the last few minutes. We're happy to open it up for questions about anything. Thank you all so much for being here.
You can just raise a hand if you have a question. I'll unmute you. Yes, Donna. Hi.
Hi. So I had two quick questions. I am kind of wondering, like, I've had my own practice for a while and I need time to like integrate. And I think I would love to have a degree to potentially work for someone if I needed to have that stability and to learn and all of that. And I'm just wondering, are there people who get hired without a license? Like, is that something that happens sometimes for people? Or do you feel like people need to get a license in order to work at a practice or with someone usually?
You want to take that? I can answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I'll take that based on what I know. I still maintain a practice as a unlicensed integrative somatic therapist. I work for myself. However, before that, I worked in addiction and recovery centers. It's still an area that I adore. I think it's important. I think it's an important area that doesn't have enough somatic work and integrative work happening. When I was in that space, there definitely was bureaucracy, right? They do need licensed therapists. That is how they are able to accept insurance. But there was also a fair amount of the budget that was open for more holistic practices. And that's where I found my niche because I could come in and say, well, I'm not, they would have like yoga instructors or massage therapists or like sound bath practitioners and that sort of thing. And it was like, well, I'm not doing that. I'm doing something that's kind of in the middle. They took a chance on me and saw how helpful it was for the clients. And it grew, at least in my community. I was in demand at many local recovery centers. So you can, if you start to, and this is why one of the things we've been talking about on our team is the importance of group therapy facilitation. And people don't usually give that very much thought. They're really thinking one on one. You have to think outside of the box a little bit. But if you really, really believe in what you're offering and how it can help people, and you walk into a space like this, or even eating disorder recovery clinics, places like that, where they really want to say, "Hey, here's what our location can offer that some of the other centers don't have," they will be willing to take a chance on you. And from there, then you grow. Because from there, I got individual clients and those clients' parents and that sort of thing. It's certainly not the most straightforward route. It is not the most, there's a lot of uncertainty. So you have to be really clear about your intention. And I was very clear that I wanted to try to change the system from outside the system rather than inside the system. But that doesn't mean that there aren't more than one ways or paths to where we're trying to go. And none is right or wrong. It just depends on who you are.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And that makes sense. And the only other quick question I had was, did I hear that there's two things that are actually in person and not online, or is it all online?
I realized that we didn't even mention that. So there are every December and June, we do run an in-person weekend. Students on the degree are required to come to one of the three options that you have. You can either come to the first one on enrollment, the second, or the third. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. We totally forgot to mention that.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a course offered during those in-person immersions. So in addition to community, you're actually earning credit. It's usually an elective course. So then that means later in the final 2 quarters, you wouldn't have to take one of the electives if you didn't choose. So it's not, I mean, we don't think it's a waste of time anyway, but aside from that, you are earning credits towards your degree.
Yes, Stephen, did you have a question?
Yes, could you reiterate, well, a few. Can you reiterate the Thursday class times?
Yeah, Thursday class times are 9 to noon PST.
All right. So what does work look like in terms of are we writing papers? Are we doing a little both in terms of mentoring and practice? And so that'd be one question. And then are we finding our own practicums and or internships? And so those
Are
are a
they,
few of the questions.
yeah, that sounds like a Nikki question also. For the first part, the homework or the coursework is, I believe, what you were asking about. So it's a combination of paper writing or reflections, but we also have a lot of audio submissions, video submissions, especially in the clinical skills classes. Usually those midterms and finals would be a recording of you demonstrating what you've learned and a reflection. Because as part of any therapist or facilitator should be reflecting on the way they deliver the information, how they work with clients, what could change in the future, how they could have done something different. So we always combine those two. The clinical skills courses, you'll have a midterm, you'll have a final. One part will be audio or visual, one part will be a reflection. And then the rest of the requirements for those classes specifically would be a practice log. And part of the way that you fill in that practice log would be from the clinical skills course anyway, or sorry, from the skills lab course anyway. That's a part of the clinical skills class. And then the rest of the practice time could be with clients if you are coaching, or it could be with friends and family if you don't have an established practice. In the more theoretical and conceptual courses, it's still the same. I teach foundations of integrative therapy. I make sure that there are some assignments. I mean, the students didn't quite understand me in the beginning when I was calling them portfolio artifacts, but it was really because part of the submissions would be create an artistic expression about this concept that you learned or a journal entry. So some of it is written. We're trying to get away from write us, 15-page papers, right?
Sure.
So there's none of that. But there's still reading. There's reflections on that reading. It's still very much a master's degree, but we are just trying to make sure that the information hits those 3 areas I talked about: conceptual, embodied, and applied.
Okay.
I forgot the second question.
No, that's good. I'm in a
Okay.
K-CREP program right now, so I'm trying to figure out how
Yeah.
this works. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also popped in the chat, Stephen, something if you do want to speak to Mason one-on-one. He's one of our admissions advisors, just about your unique situation. Sometimes that can be really helpful. He's available today or tomorrow or on Friday as well, and that link's just in the chat too.
Thank you.
Elizabeth.
Oh, wait, but since Molly just popped in, we want to mention our community practice, which is available for the professional certifications and the master's degree. That's really important to us. Molly, just like a minute.
Yeah, every Wednesday we meet at 10 a.m. PST, and we run through different levels of the distribution within our system, from a somatic perspective, a cognitive perspective, an emotional perspective, with different kind of embodied practices. And I lead that every week, and it's a really beautiful moment for all of our students to come together and practice and to learn more about what that feels like in the body. So yeah, that will be consistent throughout your program as well. Yes, Elizabeth, I see your hand. This might be the last hand up Great.
Hello. Thank you all so much for this wonderful information. This is so useful as someone who is looking to switch careers into something more grounded. I'm a yoga instructor and an actor. And I do have a master's, but in a completely different field. And I'm excited about learning how to integrate that on my journey with therapy. I just have a couple questions around the MS program, the sort of that track, if you want to go MA to MS. You mentioned that, part of the recommendation is to learn the sort of philosophy of integration with the MA and then work on your own before deciding to sort of come back into your licensure. My question is around support in working between potentially, and in finding those, hours, of course, that you're going to need after your licensure to complete that licensure. So that's if that question is clear, hopefully.
Yeah, I can take that. I think just so generally on like support post MA and post MS. Um, I think you'll feel really prepared. Like we as an institution, like we are it's part of our student responsibilities to do that themselves. It's like not something that we can provide as a service to our students. My sense is that you'll feel very prepared to do both of those. There's pretty clear lanes for finding a supervisor. Finding a supervisor to do your supervision hours is not challenging. Finding the right supervisor that you really love, that can be a little bit challenging. But in general, there's like really clear lanes for that. In terms of post MA and like getting clients and getting started in practice, or as was brought up, like navigating the career paths outside of the conventional sort of insurance machine. Again, I think through our business coursework, you'll feel really prepared in doing that. Actually, and one of the features of the business coursework is I'm going to start running a once a month container for all the students who are enrolled in it outside of the degree program as the professional certification. And so we're happy to give access to that to students who just need the extra support as they're making the transition.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We have just one more final question from, I can see you, but I don't know your name because it says Zoom user, but if you just click on mute, we'll just take this last question here.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, thank you. This has been extremely helpful. I'm very grateful for all of the information. Just a couple questions about the licensure. Is the MS currently accredited to count towards licensure, or is that still pending? I wasn't sure from the website.
Yeah, really good question. So, as an institution, we first receive our license to be able to confer the degree. We now begin an institutional accreditation process, which our accreditor takes about 2 years. So long as that accreditation process is finished, by the time you complete your MS degree, you will graduate with an accredited degree, which is why we feel fairly safe for the students that are going the MS path that it gives us like ample time to complete the accreditation. So yes, we do anticipate all students graduating from the MS will graduate with an accredited degree, and we actually by law are mandated to do so. So when we enroll you in that portion of the program, you will be graduating with an accredited degree. And after we complete that, we will then evaluate going to get the additional like cake rep, which is required for the extra 4 states. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, is there a risk factor in not having that approved, or is that pretty confident at the?
I think by law, I can't say like, oh, it's certain. We can't. It's not something that we can guarantee. The accreditation process, we know a lot about it. Mason and I went to their annual conference earlier this year. It was loads of fun. It's the accreditation process is not a yes or no. It's a when. And so essentially there's paperwork steps that we need to submit at checkpoints. And for me, if you gave us like I feel infinitely confident in this team to do it. We're like one of the fastest ever to get our license, so I feel really confident. Could there be like maybe a 6 month buffer on that? That's very realistic. Is there going to be a 3 year buffer on that? I can't really see that being the case. So what I can say using compliant language is that yes, we feel very confident.
Totally fair and honest. I appreciate that greatly. And do you know, would it be for California?
California, yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. You all have been amazing. Really grateful.
Thank you so much. Well, we're going to complete for today. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll send out the recording of this if you have more questions. And yeah, we so appreciate and value everyone for being here.